Hey, I'm Sarah Hodges, and this is Executives Uncut, the podcast where we provide solutions for the corporate cycle of hell. Now, today, we're talking all about capital raising. I'm here with Sarah Schwab, president of the independent film production company, Cardinal Flix. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Sarah. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here. So, David Seraphine is who connected us, and David was on our podcast a few months ago talking about his film about Alzheimer's. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's going?
Sure. Yeah, it's going really well. David and I met through LinkedIn almost a year ago, I would say, and he wrote the book Before the Ashes Fall, and he was very interested in having it become either a play, a stage play, or a movie. And he reached out to me to see if I were interested in the material. I read the book, fell in love with his work, really recommended that we turn it into a film with everything that's going on with, the craziness of the world right now. And so I actually wrote the screenplay with him and going to be directing the film.
That is so awesome. And one thing that I remember from my interview with David is that he had a very unique, capital raising structure or like a financing structure. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you're related to that?
Yeah, sure. So Cardinal Flix has does investment and also is a non-for-profit. We have non-for-profit status and can collect donations also with our investment policies because of a lot of just charitable things that we do with each of our films that we make. Three of them that are pretty much part of every film is we have a young producer program where we take early stage producers and bring them to the set, have them on all our producer phone calls. We have the women director program. We take 2 or 3 early career directors who are women that just want to be part of the set. They can see everything that happens, watch everything. And then we have a mentorship program where we take 16 people between the ages of 16 and 21 who are in need in some way, and also invite them to the set throughout the course of shooting. So because of these philanthropic sort of initiatives, we're allowed to take investments and donations.
Wow, that's amazing. But then that also means that you have kind of double responsibility, right? You're going to be reaching out, looking for investors all the time, trying to raise that capital to fund these incredible initiatives. What have you learned through that process?
The beautiful thing about all the current projects that we have right now is that they have this socially responsible, not even the initiatives, but the actual topics that we are touching upon. Like with David's story is about dementia and Alzheimer's and the complications and challenges with family members and society accepting and placing them somewhere and how that all falls out. We just completed a film back in January 2020 before all hell broke loose. That was about the heroin addiction and fentanyl, and it was based on a true story about a teenage boy who was living at home, passed away, and his parents found him and had no idea he was even using. So we're trying to really touch on topics that are unsaid topics, but very important. People are afraid to talk about them at length, I think.
Yeah. Wow. So you're touching on real topics, and I'm wondering how that changes the conversations that you're having with investors.
Well, I think it changes the conversation with investors because it's something that they can really not only emotionally get attached to, because especially with dementia topic, a lot of people have been touched either personally or other people that they know have been touched by it. So they can emotionally attach to it. And it's also something that we have such a good strategy in terms of the financing of the film. We keep everything very low budget. So making that money back for investors is part of our plan too. Keep the budget low, tell a good story.
Wow, it's so different. Anybody watching this podcast may recall that my husband is a venture capitalist, and so, but I hear him talking about more like pharmaceuticals and biotech and the different stages, and it gets very technical. But it sounds like when you're speaking with investors that you're really looking to connect with them on a deeper level. So, can you give us an example of how some of those conversations maybe got really real?
Sure. I love using LinkedIn. I think that it just shows tons of different people from different backgrounds. And so I was looking for different people that might be interested in the topics that we were going to, and people who had, disposable income to also with an eye toward investment. And so a few years ago, I happened upon a senior executive at one of the major tech companies in California. And instead of coming right at him with the ask, I told him what my plans were and what my goals were. I was raising money, just to be clear and upfront. But I asked him a lot of questions, and I wanted to know more about him and what his interests are. And he started to tell me that he's always had a passion and love for creating music. And, send me some of your stuff. I would love to listen to it. And so he sent me over some of his stuff, and it was gorgeous and just really just moved me on a human level. And I'm like, you should compose films. Do you want to compose my next film? And
Wow.
he's like, do you want me to? I've never done this before. And I'm like, yeah, you can totally do it. So he agreed, and he became one of our investors as well. And we're going to be working together on our next feature this coming spring. So that's just like one of the examples of how you get really creative with talking to people and listening and having it be a relationship and a connection and not just like a money grab, because that's like totally like lame.
Yeah. And it sounds like, I imagine that even had he not invested, that you appreciated, the composition and the beautiful music that he was contributing as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure he knew that and felt that. That's so awesome. I love that approach, right? That you wanted to reach out and get to know them as well. All of us are on LinkedIn and get so many, random, kind of sells, right? From financial advisors or virtual assistants or, lead magnets, like whoever it may be. And the fact that you're reaching out and trying to genuinely connect, I know from even coaching people in sales that is going to be such a better way to get someone to invest or to buy, right? If you're talking about sales. Yeah.
One of the biggest turnoffs for me when I'm actually approached, whether in email or on LinkedIn or whatever, is when someone just sends me like this block of information about whatever it is that because I'm in the film industry, they'll send me a block of information about their film and how it's going to be the next, great thing. And they're going to make millions and like all this stuff. And it's like literally like 6, paragraphs long. And I'm just like, it's like, that is totally a money grab to me. And it's like, how about you just ask how I'm doing? How am I surviving the world right now? How was your holiday? How was your New Year? To me, that's a person who actually cares about me. And, that makes me want to reciprocate that care and interest.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And I sit back and I wonder, if you're doing that, if you're taking that approach, you as Sarah, to find investors and you're trying to build connections, it's also very time consuming, right? And I imagine that you still hear the word no quite often. How do you manage the time investment, knowing that there's going to be a lot of no's?
Yeah, there's always gonna be no's, and I knew this. I kind of knew this, but it's something that I'm learning as I get deeper into production aspect of things. I've always been a writer since I was very young. Story is the thing that interests me most. Telling a good story, however the medium that story comes out, whether that's prose or journalism or theater and now film. That's really all that matters to me. And I think it's very important for the world, especially now, that we tell good, authentic, important stories. So I get over the hurdles of no, because that is my focus, that is my vision. And if this project isn't for somebody, that's cool. That's their prerogative. That doesn't mean that there isn't somebody out there who's going to love it. So I just really have this inner glow of optimism that's kind of just been there my whole life. And I take no as an opportunity to, I don't know, it's just the challenge and the process of it all, and enjoying the challenge and process of getting a good story made.
I love it. So it sounds like you accept the word no is just part of the bigger picture, the bigger process.
And it is time consuming, like you said, and I have a great team of people that also help with the fundraising endeavors. I make sure that I get at least a month or two a year that I can just go off and do writing and kind of build that side of me and feed that side of me. So yeah, it's a balancing act.
You're about to go take one of those months, from what I understand, right?
Yes. After we talk, actually, I'm taking the entire month of January to work on writing another screenplay about a young woman who is a photographer, and she goes blind from a degenerative retinal disease. And so I'm really interested in tapping into what it's like for blind people to lose their vision and what the challenges that they have to go through.
Wow, I'm wondering if the stories that you're telling, whether they're your own or someone else's like play or screenplay, if that in a sense has helped foster your resilience and your authenticity, kind of walking in their shoes, so to speak.
I think so, absolutely. There is a community out there, and whatever topic that community. You tap into it and you learn about different ways that people live and exist and are resilient. And that resiliency is generative. And so I think it is great to just try to tell different stories with different people, and you're all in it together. And that's the beautiful thing. Everybody has their own story. Everyone has their own uphill battle. And the more you understand what other people's are, the more you can try to find commonality.
Yeah, which makes it much easier to convey these things to prospective investors.
Totally.
What else? Yeah, what else? If you were to list the most important things to convey to prospective investors, what would they be?
Investors or people looking for money, would you say?
I guess either,
Okay.
I said, no, well, let's say if you're like a startup and you are looking for money, what should a startup convey to investors?
Yeah, so I would say that don't beat around the bush. That's like the first thing. I had a really long conversation a long time ago with a very successful woman who was like, look, if the person is rich, they're going to know why you're coming to them. You're looking for money. So that's like already out there on the table. So don't try to hide it. Be honest about it, but don't make it a money grab. Try to find what that commonality is and ask a lot of questions. Ask what they're interested in. What do they want? And if there's overlap, it'll be apparent. And if there's not, then nobody's time is wasted and you move on. So that's kind of my first thought. The second one is to present all of your project or projects as an opportunity rather than being like, instead of like them doing something for you, have it be like, you're doing something for them and you're doing something for each other. So I think presenting and really believing in your project and giving them all of the reasons why it's going to be successful, because you've done your due diligence from the beginning all the way to the end and how you're going to sell it. Know the whole arc of what it is. And that leads me to my third thing, is that it all comes down to the product, whether you're writing a story or a film or whatever it is. If you're a startup, high-tech company, anything, the product's got to be good. You have to believe in the product and authentically really believe in your product and be excited about it. And if you're excited, that person is going to feel that excitement and believe in it. And I think people with disposable incomes who have an eye toward investment are looking for things to believe in. So those are my three little things that I've learned.
Perfect. Three quick tips. So we had don't waste anybody's time, right? Was number one. It was don't beat around the bush, be upfront, be direct. I love that. I can tell you're a very direct person and you're like, let's just get to the bottom line and then, let them decide. And I think that's so important. A lot of when people are capital raising or selling, they take on that car salesman thing where they're like, oh no, I can kind of force them. I can convince them. And you're kind of saying
see right through that. Like it's
yeah.
like yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, don't try to convince them. Just tell them what it really is, and then give them the freedom to choose. And it's like, especially if you're talking about an investor, that's a relationship, right? You don't want to be in a relationship with somebody whose arm you had to twist to be in that relationship with you. And I think that's a good lesson for service providers too, whether you're a wealth manager or a coach or anybody. If you are selling a service, that's a relationship. You don't want to twist their arm because you're gonna have to keep twisting their arm to convince them to stay too,
Yeah.
And then number 2 is don't seem needy, which I think also comes across when you're trying to convince them. Is that right? And then number 3 was it all comes down to the product and convey excitement. So what do you do if, you're not super into the product? I mean, there's, I think, some people out there, I'm sure, who are capital raising because it's their job, or they are selling because it's their job, and they're not super into the product. Do you have any advice for those people?
If somebody is not interested specifically in the actual thing that you're, I don't like saying selling, but the thing that you are looking to grow, then I think that I have also found people who are interested in either me and championing me as a director, as a female director, whatever that is, and kind of seeing the breadth of Cardinal Flix, the company, the work that we're going to be doing, and seeing that this might not be for them, but the next project might be for them, and seeing that with each project, there's going to be a growth process. And so investing from the bottom floor and seeing where it's going to go. If they believe in the whole thing, not just the creative element of it, but the business strategy, then I think that is just as important as well. You have to be really smart on both ends, creatively and business. And I'm certainly great at the creative aspect of it. I have a partner named Brian Long, who's my business, my better half business partner. And together we really know how to merge the two. So
that's awesome. And I'm sure that you feed him and help him understand what is worth investing in, right? Like, here's the creative aspects of it, and then he can communicate that.
Yep,
with the investors. It reminds me of a super quick story, kind of unrelated, but related. One of my college jobs was in retail at a very, well-renowned bookstore. And I was working, as a cashier. This is a college winter job or whatever. And I had to sell memberships. And I thought this membership thing was so stupid because I definitely never would have bought one, in a million years, right? And my manager said to me, she's like, you have to figure out what you think is really cool about it. Well, come to find out, my grandma had bought one a couple of years ago. And so I wanted to understand, why the heck would grandma be interested in this? Why would she buy it? And she bought it to benefit the whole family, so we could all kind of share it. And as I started thinking about it, I started understanding different ways and different people who might appreciate it, and then building a connection with people to talk about it. And so by doing that, I ended up outselling my my little colleagues, my other cashiers, by 1,200%. Just by believing in the product, even though I didn't start it that way. So, I think that there's something to be said about really deeply understanding not just what the benefit is for you and why you think it's cool, but also understanding why somebody out there who's not you, really looking at it through their lens and understanding why they might think it's cool. And that goes for capital raising or selling.
Absolutely. And it's exactly, what I was saying before, is ask a lot of questions about the person, because this story, or specifically for me, this film and this story might not be for them, but there might be other aspects of their life that you can have connections over that you just never even thought about. The music aspect was one of them. You want to be a composer, you want to get to know films, and, come and write some music. That's great.
Yes.
We'll figure it out that way.
And you were real and authentic about that. You didn't just dangle a carrot in front of him. And I think that's the other big takeaway here. And that actually brings us into our coaching challenge. So any of our listeners, next time you meet with a prospect, or an investor, notice what's holding you back from being real. You'll feel it in your body. Like, are you being weird? Very likely,
Yeah.
and see if you can just turn that weirdness off and show up more authentically, and use the great tips that Sarah gave us earlier. So, and those tips were awesome. Sarah, where else can our viewers find out more about you?
So you can go to our website at www.cardinalflix.com. That's Flix. There it is at the bottom of the screen. You can also contact me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I go on there quite often, and that's just Sarah T. Schwab on LinkedIn. If you Google me, you'll find me. If there's a lot of Sarah Schwabs on there, apparently. So if you say Sarah T. Schwab, Cardinal Flix, you will find me. And I love talking to people and hearing about their projects. Just please, just introduce yourself first, though. Not a brick of information about your project.
Right. Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone else for tuning in to this episode of Executives Uncut. And listen, if you enjoyed the content, please subscribe, share with someone who could benefit from it. And you can always find more by visiting hodgescoaching.com or follow us at Hodges Coaching on social media. This was great. Thanks again, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Talk soon.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Hodges, and I'll see y'all next week.